Welcome to HUD's Vignette series on energy performance contracting. A series of 8 vignettes were developed under a contract with HUD's Energy Branch, Public Housing Financial Management Division. Today's vignette, number 2, will focus on baseline adjustments for an EPC. My name is Matt Pesey. I am the principal for Facility Strategies Group. FSG is a consulting engineering firm specializing in energy efficiency, sustainability, and renewable energy projects. I have experience in energy engineering, energy project development, finance, engineering, commissioning, and measurement and verification, and have worked in public housing for more than 20 years. The vignettes are designed for public housing authorities with an EPC. HUD wants to improve your overall understanding of energy performance contracts, specifically to identify eligible costs, calculate savings, and request EPC incentives on HUD Forms 52722 and 52723 as part of your annual operating subsidy submission. Vignette series include the following topics: measurement and verification reports, baseline adjustments, project costs, frozen rolling base savings, resident paid utility savings, add-on subsidy savings, 75% project rule, and cross-subsidization of the EPC incentives. For those of you that are new to EPCs, the vignettes can serve as an introduction to key EPC terms and principles required to implement a successful EPC. As we go through the slides, we will introduce you to critical HUD program references you will need to become familiar with to manage an EPC. After completing this vignette, you should be able to understand how a baseline is established, recognize common baseline adjustments, know HUD's standard adjustments, and recognize common contractual adjustments included in energy services agreements. Our discussion today will walk us through policies associated with utility subsidy and baseline adjustments, adjustments common for baselines, and example adjustment calculations. Utility data is assembled into a baseline. For HUD energy projects, the baseline is 3 consecutive years of utility bills. In assembling the bills into a baseline, or at least some time during construction or repayment, it is frequently found that the data is incomplete, has errors, or does not reflect recent equipment addition or building changes, or near future changes to building conditions or usage are expected. This requires the baseline to be adjusted. Adjustments can take 2 directions. Adjustments can increase or decrease the baseline usage. Adjustments can occur during project approval, during construction, usually after discovery of analytical errors or oversights, or during project repayment. Adjustments can be of 2 types: contractual adjustments between the owner and an ESCO. These are adjustments that relate to the ESCO guarantee. And 2, HUD-approved adjustments directly affecting subsidy. These are adjustments that would potentially be approvable by HUD, but will require formal approval. An adjustment is an engineering calculation. It is secular, so to speak. So whether an ESCO requires it to provide a guarantee, or whether HUD allows and approves it, adjustments are contractual and policy considerations, respectively, not engineering considerations. Contractual adjustments between the owner, the housing authority, and the ESCO can include weather corrections, maintenance-related corrections when maintenance is not performed, changes in building use, etc., some of which may be eligible HUD adjustments, but are defined in the ESCO contract. HUD-approved adjustments are specific to the 52722 and 23 forms and subsidy eligibility. Various adjustments may come up within the context of repayment. Some may have been included within an ESCO contract, but are not allowed by HUD, so can't be passed through, leaving the risk with the housing authority. Annual weather adjustments within a frozen baseline are an example of this. An ESCO requires weather adjustments to protect its performance in any given year, while HUD does not allow weather adjustments to a frozen baseline. Other adjustments are requested both contractually and are commonly approved by HUD. An example of this would be changes that occur from removal of a site for RAD conversion or changes to a building's usage. Other adjustments, even if it is specifically allowed in statute, may have a specific HUD approval process required and specific support information that must be provided for its approval. Common adjustments include weather, occupancy changes, changes to building equipment, use or configuration, including demolition of apartments, capital projects that change equipment installed under the EPC, moving sites out of the EPC, e.g. for RAD or demo dispo, changes to energy using equipment from a group adding loads, changing efficiencies, and fuel switches, changes to operation from a group, temperature set points, equipment overrides, changes to building configuration, for example, changing a space to another use, renovating to make fewer but larger apartments. Other common adjustments include meter corrections, returning equipment to code, required operation, air conditioning, capital fund projects, and load creep. Some of these are also mandatory HUD baseline adjustments, such as moving sites out of an EPC for RAD conversion. Changes to building configuration is a HUD allowed adjustment. Weather is always an issue in energy projects. Adjustments are possible for heating or cooling, but in housing projects, heating adjustments are more common. If not adjusted for temperature, consumption savings appear to reduce on cold days and increase on warm days. Cooling can erode electric savings, particularly the addition of air conditioning to common areas or apartments that did not previously have air conditioning. An ESCO requires adjustments for weather because their guarantees are calculated using utility baselines that reflect a given set of weather conditions, and guarantees are applied each year. So each year's individual weather has an impact on savings. HUD does not allow weather adjustments for frozen baselines and only allows adjustments to additional subsidy baselines if approved with the project development approval stage. Example, weather adjustment. Weather adjustments require usage and temperature data for the baseline period and for the current performance period. This can come from the bills, accounts payable, weather services, and on-site sensors installed with control systems. Least squares calculations can be done with one-piece linear or piecewise linear formulas. The most easily obtainable are one-piece linear regressions available in spreadsheet software. In this slide, the data is tabulated above. The left bottom chart shows the data scatter plotted against weather and shows the linear least squares equation. The right bottom chart shows trend lines comparing the baseline, adjusted baseline, and the actual usage data. Least squares adjustments can be done to the baseline or to the current year's data. The baseline usage can be moved forward using current year's weather to compare the current actual usage, or the current actual usage can be adjusted for comparison to the unadjusted baseline. The more common method is to adjust the baselines for weather, since more months of data are available. A period of consumption is plotted against heating degree days, average daily temperature minus a balance point temperature, commonly 65 degrees, to calculate a least squares fit. Then the current period weather is modeled to determine adjusted baseline usage and compared to the current use to calculate savings. Either tenant density or population vacancy rates can change utility usage, particularly with utilities that are population dependent or in buildings that can isolate loads for population. Tenant density is the number of people in an apartment, while the population vacancy rate is the number of apartments that are occupied. Water and domestic hot water usage are very strongly correlated with occupancy. Fewer people and fewer occupied apartments will directly result in apparent savings, that is, usage reduction, that are not related to conservation measures. Usage such as lighting will go down if an apartment is empty, since lighting will be turned off by property management. Heat or air conditioning may also be reduced if the apartments have individual controls. Central plants serving large control zones won't perform much differently for the loss of individual apartments. Common adjustments for changes to equipment are related to adding new loads, changing equipment, new building usage, and new fuels. These can directly affect savings guarantees and are outside the ESCO's direct control. Any of these can trigger a condition in the ESCO guarantee. All would require a HUD-requested adjustment during repayment. Changes to use and operations can include changing temperature, set points, equipment overrides, or not performing maintenance. Control savings are frequently a big component of EPC savings estimates and assume building set points for space temperature, domestic hot water delivery and recirculation, and lockouts of various equipment. Lack of maintenance directly affects savings, as does occupant behaviors such as using the windows to control building temperatures. Any of these can trigger a condition in the ESCO guarantee. Changes in operation and maintenance are not typically approved as HUD-requested adjustments during repayment. Changes to building configuration can include conversions and demolition, changing the number of apartments, changing the population density or the population demographics from a group, more kids, more elderly, etc. And demolishing apartments can all change usage by changing utility use intensity and utility usage profiles. Other changes to configuration might include repurposing building space and adding new spaces. The adjustments accepted at project review approval are baked in. These adjustments are detailed as part of the technical document package submitted to the Energy Center when the project was prepared for review. Any of these changes during repayment can affect guarantee provisions. Adjustments would require HUD approvals. Meter corrections are a common adjustment. When a water meter fails, it tends to run slower. Grit and mineral deposits get into the moving parts and creates greater friction. Meter adjustments are often triggered by the utility company. Slow meters register less water and therefore less revenue. The utility is always on the lookout for meters that need repairs and can be replaced. As a result, this kind of adjustment may happen at any time. When discovered during project development, usually in the investment grade audit, the meters can be corrected before they affect savings and cash flows. When a meter change out happens during repayment, it can result in an increase in usage. The authority will need to provide support information regarding a change out of the meter and any measurements that the utility may have taken. In this example, the usage is humming along, but at a suppressed value. After the correction, the flow will increase. The authority should assemble as much data as possible. In this data, the gallons per person per day, GPPD, before the meter changeout is fairly low, about 42 to 45 gallons per person per day. In review of the utility data before a retrofit, this would likely be flagged as an issue. If found after the retrofit, it will erode savings. Returning equipment to code is covered by statute and regulation. A common situation is when exhaust fans or makeup air units have failed and been left disabled in place. This can result in less fresh air than is required by building codes. Some types of equipment failures reduce energy use and therefore suppress the baseline data. Corrections, when requested, are usually for increases to the baseline level to reflect how this equipment would have affected usage. If a contractor, engineer, or housing authority assess and document at a time certain that equipment has failed, then this adjustment can be calculated and requested from HUD. Many housing agencies are providing air conditioning in common areas and community centers to provide safe zones for high heat days, or indirectly including air conditioning when they replace existing heating systems with high efficiency heat pump systems for heating. ESCO agreements will require adjustments to electric use for added air conditioning. HUD adjustments may be requested within HUD policy, but requests are to be provided with supporting calculations and will be at HUD's sole discretion. Adjustments for capital funds. This is a special case related to changing equipment. Capital fund program projects are the most common source of repayment period HUD adjustments. Savings from the use of capital funds are not eligible for inclusion in performance contracts. New domestic hot water equipment, boilers, windows, etc., that are funded by capital funds have the potential to reduce usage on frozen baselines. For additional subsidy projects and resident paid utility projects, these projects don't typically affect savings, since they commonly use retrofit isolation savings verification, option A verification. Revisions to option A calculations during repayment would not be allowed without field office approval. Load creep is a common concept for electricity that covers adding plug loads such as phones, computers, printers, and other devices. And some agencies have given their senior or disabled residents electric scooters that get charged daily. This adjustment is frequently requested, but never allowed. Knowledge check. Baseline adjustments for metering errors are allowed by regulations. True. Baseline adjustments during repayment must be approved before they are used. True. Baseline adjustments for weather are not allowed for HUD-determined savings in frozen base projects. True. Baseline adjustments are allowed for failed equipment replaced to meet building codes. True. Baseline adjustments may not be requested in both project development and during repayment. False. Thank you for attending HUD's Vignette series on energy performance contracting. We hope that the series has been helpful to your understanding of energy performance contracting, and we encourage you to listen to all 8 of the vignettes in this series. You may email any comments or questions to HUD at pih_EPC_policy@hud.gov.